Hello, everyone, and welcome into the playoff edition here on Griffin Media as we get set for game number one between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Memphis Grizzlies. Welcome in. My name is Jeremie Poplin, joined by Steve McGeehee, who's the Thunder reporter for News 9. And Steve, it's finally here. We finally got our opponent. We had to wait a little while because of the play-in, but now it's the Memphis Grizzlies who dispatched the Dallas Mavericks. And a series against the Grizzlies is one that is a little bit intriguing for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into that. But first, I want to welcome you in, man. And how excited are you to get things rolling tomorrow at noon over at Paycom?
I'm ready to go. I've been waiting 83 games for this playoff point. Great regular season. Had an extra game there in Las Vegas, but we were just trying to get to the finish line. As I said before, with two arms and two legs, referring to the Thunder, and I think they are as healthy as they're going to be going to the playoffs. And I'm excited. I was at the arena just a short while ago, and then the T-shirts are all down, so you got that feel, that playoff feel. So I think we're ready to go.
Where would we be without the playoff T-shirts there for the Oklahoma City Thunder? It's one of the more craved things, I think, by the fan base. We had a guy at work yesterday that was talking about, he's like, man, I'm so excited to see what the T-shirt will actually look like for game one. Well, now we know, and we'll see that here coming up on national television on Sunday's game. Well, I want to dive first right into the playoff history between these two teams because, this Thunder Grizzlies matchup, for some of the younger fans, this is something that's completely new. But I know I was a little bit surprised the same way that you were when you start to dive through some of the history. And these two teams have not played since 2014. So we're over a decade since the last time that we've had this matchup, Steve.
It's incredible. I did a double take on that. 2014 was the last time, but it felt like before 2014, they were meeting every year in the playoffs. And
yeah.
Grant, Westbrook, Ibaka, Adams, and they had Zebo, Conley. Who else am I missing? I mean, there's many more. Just some great players. Tony Allen, great defender. So it was always a great series. And they had the triple overtime game in Memphis that the Thunder pulled out. The Thunder had to win one in Memphis to avoid going down 3-1 in this series. One time, Reggie Jackson had a great game to help them out in that situation, but it was the Grindhouse and the Ford Center / Chesapeake Arena. It was popping. There were some great series, and there weren't many blowouts. It was always down to the wire with those guys. Marc Gasol.
Yeah, I want to go.
I was missing
Marc Gasol. That's right. I want to rewind back to 2011. That was the Western Conference semis. The Durant, Westbrook, Harden, still a young team, but definitely on the rise. Memphis, they were the underdog 8 seed that had just knocked out the Spurs. That series went 7 games, including the triple overtime thriller in Game 4. Very physical, emotional game. Kind of set the tone for this matchup for years to come. OKC did win Game 7 and move on, but Memphis absolutely earned respect. And then that will get us to 2013. When the Grizzlies actually got their revenge. Westbrook, if you remember, Steve, went down early in the playoffs with that torn meniscus. And without him, they really couldn't keep pace. And Memphis won in 5, locking things down defensively. It kind of outmuscled the Thunder. And as you mentioned before, that was the peak grit and grind era with Conley, Gasol, and Zach Randolph kind of controlling that series.
Yeah, I remember that Game 7 in Oklahoma City. Rudy Gay was out. Rudy Gay was a quality player at that time, and he was out with an injury. So I thought the Thunder, I think it was at 11, caught a break there. But then Zebo gets suspended for a game a few years later, and that really helped out the Thunder as well. So you got to get some breaks. But, of course, Beverly and Westbrook bumped knees in the Houston series. So Oklahoma City wins that. I think they won by 2 points or 3. And then knocks the Thunder out, which would have been, I think, a potential NBA championship for OKC. Bad break.
2014 was maybe the most underrated series of that entire postseason. You had 4 overtime games. Every game was an absolute war. Game 7, Zach Randolph suspended, Conley banged up. OKC was able to take advantage of that. That's the season that Durant went on to win MVP, delivered the dagger. Thunder win that series 4-3. So that gets us to this year. And I definitely am intrigued by this, mainly just because of the overall storylines. I think not just the history of this series, but, there are a lot of people a few years ago that had kind of put the label on the Memphis Grizzlies of being that young up and coming team. And how things have changed since around 2019, because it seems like the Memphis franchise has just had a series of bad luck with one injury or another. And it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, it's been John Morant, it's been Jaren Jackson, it's been just on down the list. They always seem to have something happen to them, and how the roles have reversed, where it's now the Thunder that's the youngest team, most exciting, has got the entire future ahead of them. But it wasn't long ago that people thought that was going to be the Memphis Grizzlies.
I thought going into this year, Memphis was the one I was most concerned about with Marcus Smart, and it just never worked out with Marcus in Memphis. He was dealing with injuries, but I just thought the way Memphis was built, they were built to kind of give the Thunder some problems. And they pick up Zach Edey, who only got better as the season went on, and hopefully, he's a rebound machine. And I always think the tall guy that has some talent, that's what you want on your team. But Memphis has built themselves a good team again. Injuries are hurting them this year. Brandon Clark is now out. Jalen Wells, a very good rookie defender that had some success against Shea, he's out for this series. Once again, they're dealing with injury, and but they do not going to take them for granted at all. This Grant and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, the way he brings that toughness and that effort every time down the floor, they should not be taken lightly. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. It could go 5, it could go 6, but they should have won at Golden State. They just didn't do the things right against the Warriors to beat the 7th seed. So they really took care of business against Dallas.
I'm like you. I don't think this will be a sweep. Both of us would agree that clearly this is a series that we both think that the Thunder can win easily on this. But to your point about not taking them lightly, but this is a series between these two teams that has been absolutely dominated by OKC. 9 wins in a row, I think, over the Grizzlies. They've won that by an average of almost 16 points per game during that stretch. They've just been flat out better than what Memphis has been over a stretch of 9 or 10 games.
It wasn't that long ago. A few years ago, as we talked the last time we talked about the rebuild years, they had the worst loss ever against Memphis, and then they went back there and won against Memphis. So that was a great turnaround there. But the Thunder, they have built this team the right way to beat teams like Memphis. They knew what they needed when they lost to Dallas, and then Dallas blew it all up by trading Luka for Anthony Davis and virtually nothing else. That's a horrible trade for them. So this Memphis team, though, I think they could be another team on the rise. The only thing that bothers me about Memphis is the fact that they had Taylor Jenkins. His last game was against the Thunder when they lost at Paycom Center, and it was a close game. And then down the stretch, they just had too many turnovers, and they weren't prepared, and the Thunder get the win. But let me see if I say his name. Tomas Isala is the interim coach from Memphis. And that was it's interesting how they're in the playoffs with a coach that's relatively new to them being as an interim head coach right now. And some of the coaching changes late in the season were mind-boggling, and no one has the patience to wait anymore. Sacramento made the change first with Mike Brown being let go and Christie coming in, and that, from what last time I was out there asking about the Kings, and they said internally they're kind of a mess right now. So it didn't surprise me that Dallas won, that Dallas made a trade, and that was a big messy situation for them that did not pan out. Then Memphis makes the coaching move, and it's worked out for them. They're now in the playoffs. What's the other third team here? I'm on like 5 hours sleep, so there was 4. What do we got here? Dallas, Memphis, Sacramento.
Yeah, Dallas and Golden State.
It's just that everybody in the play-in situation dealt with some type of move, either by trade or by coach.
Yeah. The other thing about Memphis is that I don't think there's going to be anything, just considering the ups and downs, kind of the roller coaster season that Memphis has had. Grit and grind is kind of a thing of the past, but it's still the mentality kind of the franchise. And I would put that on this team too, because of, all the injury situations, the constant headline grabbing for negative reasons that Ja has been over the course of this season, the firing of the head coach. they've kind of been through the ringer so far this year, Steve. So they're still tough-minded team that's not just going to roll over easily for OKC.
I think they go into this series motivated. They felt like they should have won at Golden State, and they took care of Dallas. Dallas kind of made a run at them in the third quarter the other night. Then Memphis shut the door on. But Memphis has nothing to lose in this series. They're not projected to win. And I'm always leery of those winning streaks and losing streaks. Eventually, they have to end. 9 lot. The Thunder, nothing they can do about it. The game's in front of them. The job is to win the game, and they've won 9 times in a row against Memphis. Maybe it will be 12 in a row, maybe 13. We'll see. But for the Thunder, it's just play their game. Just play your game. Don't change anything up. Play the way you did for 68 victories. Guys, the starters are rested. They haven't played in more than a week. They've been working hard at practice this week. They're well prepared. And as I see this series, I see which team has the better coach. That's Oklahoma City. Which team has the better starting 5? That's Oklahoma City. Which team plays better defense? That is Oklahoma City. Which team has the home court advantage? That would be Oklahoma City. So there's too many check marks favoring the Thunder for any type of a Grizzlies. Maybe 1, maybe 2 wins if the Thunder don't shoot the ball well. But this is a series that Oklahoma City should win in 5.
You mentioned how Oklahoma City is a well-rested team. You were there at practice, not only today, but earlier in the week as well. There's nothing that ever really changes about them. I mean, they lose, it only happened just a handful of times. They lose a couple of games in a row. Same type of approach, same type of mentality. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. They carry that exact same type of energy with them, even through the week or so that they've been off. They just look as calm and as confident as ever.
They have some experience now. They said, well, they're too young. They're not experienced enough. I'm like, well, Russo and Hartenstein in the ringer before when it comes to playoffs. Those are 2 great pickups in the season. That means something. And those guys were brought in for a reason. If they had to play Dallas again, the way Dallas was set up 3 months ago, they were prepared to beat them, or at least be as close as you can with them. I think they had more than enough to beat Dallas this year before that trade was made. But Oklahoma City's done the right things. It is impressive that a 2-game losing streak is the most they've ever lost in a row this year. Not a lot of teams can say that. And they get motivated after a loss. They get motivated because when they lost at Houston, snapped a long winning streak. I asked them, "What's that feeling like in the locker room to go in there after a loss?" And it's not a good feeling, and it kind of motivates them to do better the next time. So that's what if they lose a game in the playoff series in round 1, they're going to be motivated to win the next one. They don't get. I think I've said it several times. They don't flinch. They don't flinch. This team doesn't get rattled. Maybe they got rattled a little bit with that home game against the Lakers where they got blown out, and then they responded by winning the next game at home. They said they were a little bit rattled then. Maybe they learned something from that game.
Let's talk a little bit about the Thunder depth, Steve, because, there are a lot of teams that you get to this time of the year and they would talk about, kind of tightening up your rotation for the playoffs. There might be some of that just from a minutes perspective, but that really, to me, is one of those things that plays right into the hands of the Thunder because, I mean, for crying out loud, from the type of players that they have and the numbers that they have, they all find a way to contribute no matter who they are.
Yeah, everyone has to be ready. Any moment, Mark's going to come down that row and point at you and let's go. And so everybody has that must be ready mentality. They've had that pretty much last year as well. So they have such a deep bench, and there's an unwritten rule out there. You got to shorten the bench for the playoffs. So I'm like, if you're the Thunder, no, you don't. You play the combinations, you play the players. They're going to help you win games. You adjust on the fly. Mark Daigneault is great at that. He's not going to just sit there and let them figure it out on the court. He'll call a timeout. He's called a timeout 30 seconds to start the second half, if he doesn't see things that go his way. So he's not afraid to play his bench players. A.J. Mitchell, he said everyone has to be ready. A.J. Mitchell missed a lot of time this year, came back and played the final 2 games. He could be somebody that could pull off the bench, but that bench is so good, and that's why they won 68 games. It's just endless. Case and Wallace, he probably should be starting somewhere else. Same goes for Aaron Wiggins. These guys are great players. And then Caruso, he probably should be starting somewhere else as well. So those are three quality guys you bring off the bench. And Kendrick Williams, he's a bulldog out there. And it's just amazing at how good and talented this bench is. And it's another reason why they won 68 games. And Mark's going to use the bench the best of his ability. Obviously, if the game is close, he's going to play Shea and Dub and Hartenstein, and possibly Chet. Well, I'm interested to see how many minutes Chet gets per game. But this is the time where, the playoffs, halftime, maybe a little bit longer. Commercial breaks are about 30 seconds longer. So use those TV timeouts to give you guys some rest and utilize your timeouts. Because if you have to, you're going to have to play your stars a little bit longer. But, in the Thunder's case, I don't think there's much slippage. If Dort goes out for a breather, Cason Wallace, pretty good defender as well. So you don't lose too much there. And Cason's pretty shifty with the ball as a guard, either handler or as a true guard. So they have some great options, and it's going to be a chess match from here until someone knocks them out.
All eyes will be on John Moran and his health. That looked ugly against the Warriors, and he still came back and found a way to play in the fourth. Kind of speaks to his level of toughness, and then what he did against the Mavericks. But ankle injuries are funny sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know he was going through injections on Thursday before they played last night. I'm sure he'll have another round of those. But that's kind of the big injury storyline heading into at least game one.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
So maybe he should play with that more often. But he is the head of the snake. If he goes, they go. So he's going to be counted on to guide this team, and that's where that Thunder defense comes in handy. They're going to throw Lou Dort on him. They're going to throw Cason Wallace on him. They're going to throw Caruso on him. They got several options to wear this guy down. But, if John Morant has a bad game, it's going to be a bad night, I think, for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Any other areas that concern you at all that Memphis might present for OKC?
Well, with Jalen Wells, I thought Wells, a rookie, really good defender. He's going to be a really good defender for quite some time, I think. He had some success against Shea this year. With him being out, advantage Thunder, and Brandon Clark's always been a good player, but he's been dealing with injuries. It seems like he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. So they missed two good guys right there. If those two were playing, it may be a little tighter, but just play the way you played all season long. That's all they have to do. Maybe Memphis comes out and hits them early just because they have some momentum, and the Thunder are not as fresh, and they'll wipe off the rust and figure it out. But I'd be shocked if Oklahoma City, this thing goes to 6, maybe 7 games. I would be shocked. Just the number one thing is try to knock them out early and stay healthy. The minimum you play, the less chance you have an injury. Because
that's right.
They need everyone on board if they want to win it all.
Final thing as we get set to wrap up. You've been now in Paycom several times, and the energy that's in that building when the playoffs hit, it is really something that is that's pretty special. Is there any way to even describe the feeling of what it's like inside of that building when the crowd gets rolling, the team's playing incredibly well? It just even oozes out through the television screen when you watch it.
Yeah, it's always fun because, we have a nice loud crowd during the regular season, but it just, once they put on those T-shirts, it amps up. Really, especially when say it's a fourth quarter, it's a close game, the Thunder hit a shot to take the lead. That's when the place pops. It's you heard it time and time again. It's like a college atmosphere, and that is so true. So the Thunder will use that to advantage, but this Thunder team, they also love playing on the road. They love being the underdog, and they love that us versus them mentality. That's why they've been so good on the road. So if they can win at Boston this year, they can certainly win at Memphis.
Well, and you even had mentioned that, right, in your top 5 wins piece that you can find right now on news9.com. You went kind of heavy-handed on the road wins, and rightfully so, but that speaks to that point that you were just talking about.
It was great. In Boston, their first points in the game, they hit a 3. The place went nuts. So my buddy was there, and he goes, they just scored a point, and they just went like it was the game-winning shot. It was unbelievable how loud that was. Thunder pulled out that win. Now I'm like, okay, they can win some playoff road games in hostile environments against good teams. So I thought that was a great moment for the Thunder. They also did it in New York as well. That crowd in New York, they never really could get into it because the Thunder hit them square in the mouth right away. But this is a team that can win at home and on the road. So, let's go. Let's fingers crossed and see what happens.
It is time. Are you ready, my man? It's time. It's here.
I'm not a big fan of this early start because that means I got to wake up earlier than usual. But maybe I can see my family on Sunday night and have some Easter dinner instead of Easter lunch. But yeah, it's go time, and it goes pretty fast, and it's almost a daily situation with the Thunder. There's always something going on in the playoffs, and the next thing you know, it's hopefully we're talking about games in June.
There is no doubt. If you want to check out our Thunder preview, you can go to news9.com right now and click on that, and more than likely see this here very video that you're watching currently right now. We'll have breakdowns for you after the game and also every preview up before the Thunder's next playoff match. Steve, have fun tomorrow, my man, inside of the arena, and we'll check in with you again very, very soon as the road to an NBA championship officially kicks off here in Oklahoma City with the Thunder versus the Grizzlies. Looking forward to hearing from you again, man.
See ya. Take care, Jeremy.
All right, that'll do it for us. Remember, you can check out all of our playoff work that's there on News 9. That is articles. We'll have up all the latest video. We're going to be streaming the pregame and also streaming the postgame there at news9.com and on the News 9 YouTube page as well. And we'll see you back soon for another review and preview for game number 2 of the Thunder and the Grizzlies here from News 9.